Welcome to Solutions with Courtney Anderson. I am your host, Courtney Anderson. Thank you so much for being here today and being part of our program. This is episode 158, episode 158 of Solutions with Courtney Anderson. We wouldn't have made it to this many programs without you being part of our community and helping and supporting and taking part in all of our programs. So thank you, or as many as you're able to. So today we have a show that is one of the series of our HR Heroes Hangout. And of course, our HR, Human Resources, Heroes Hangout is all about, dedicated to, inspired by, intended to honor, recognize, and support, acknowledge those individuals who are confident enough to volunteer to serve in human resources. This is a global, very fascinating professional field. I've had the honor to work with human resources HR heroes in many different parts of the world, in Australia and in India and in Japan, in South Africa, in Canada, and in the States, in Mexico, in the Netherlands. I mean, just so many parts of the world. This is a fundamental way for those who are talented and gifted in the areas of human resources, but also have the passion for it. Because every time you have an organization, you need human resource professionals. And so our human resource professionals, we call them our HR heroes. And this is our HR heroes hangout because we're hanging out, we're having fun, we're relaxing, we're sharing knowledge. We are doing everything we can to continue to work together to surpass our goals. That's one of my fundamental principles. And of course, I do encourage you to come to CourtneyAnderson.com. That is our primary centralized website where we have a blog, where we have all of our shows, we have additional articles. We're putting together constantly new material and programs and resources for you. We also have a show page for every single individual show. And so, of course, this is episode 158. So come to our show page, CourtneyAnderson.com, episode 158, and you'll see the expanded notes. You'll see links, additional information, and you'll have the ability to download and save the show directly. If you haven't already done so, please leave your ratings on iTunes or any other podcast or media resource that you're using. We are really assertively planning for the future growth and of this program. And again, I'm delighted. I have zero expectations going into the show, but it's just continued to astound me with how well received it's been. So we're doing everything we can from an infrastructure side, from a business side, to support it. And I'm reorienting my professional activities so that I have more of an ability to give everything I have to this program and to all of our online resources. I also do ask that you support our show sponsors. We have show sponsor links on our show pages. And I am, again, shocked at how well received it's been, the negotiations and entering into finding the right type of organizations to partner with to be sponsors and advertising partners and affiliate partners. So again, have to make sure I let you know how important it is and how grateful I am that you're here. What are we talking about in our HR Heroes Hangout today? We've talked about how important HR heroes are in general. We talked about our series. We talked about the program. We talked about all of the things that are available. I've encouraged you to come to our show page because it's really important. I've encouraged you to support our program and spread the word. Oh my goodness, I left out social media. Right. Spread the word. So through your own networks, if there's something that you see in any of our shows, again, this is episode 158. So we've got many episodes and programs available. There's got to be something hopefully there that helps you surpass your goals or help someone else you know. Put that on your social media. Spread the word and let other people know about our program. But what are we talking about here today? Well, this is a tough topic. Our HR Heroes Hangout topic show today is: how much law do I really need to know to succeed in the HR field? How much law do I really need to know to succeed in the HR field? And the reason I said it's a tough topic is because, of course, most of the time we're having so much fun in our HR Heroes Hangout, just really kind of luxuriating in some ways about all the wonderful, fun, exciting, in many ways, glamorous things that we do in HR. And when I say that, I don't say that in any way to be anything but authentic. It really is exciting because HR is dealing with people and resources to get things done. HR is almost always an entity that has a huge priority in the compensation, and processing everything in terms of payment. So dealing with money, dealing with power, dealing with people. I mean, it really is exciting. So most of what we do, of course, we're just celebrating, but we always are trying to share information and knowledge. And so this is a HR Heroes Hangout show that came about largely because, of course, I've shared in many programs my professional experience in terms of going out and doing corporate education and training programs to all types of organizations around the world. And when I used to travel, 250 to 300 days a year was my maximum. And what was I doing on the traveling so much? Well, I was flying to all these different client organizations, government agencies, and multinational companies and nonprofits, and I'm doing everything I can to help them meet and surpass their goals and practice the joyful art of business. And so I've been to, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of locations around the world, and I've mostly met HR heroes, people who just chose to enter the field of being in human resources because their passion and interest and natural talents and gifts, and they're really content and things are going well for them. But there are people I meet who are sometimes not sure that human resources HR is the right field for them. Maybe they're an aspiring HR hero. Or sometimes what we'll encounter is, especially for organizations that are smaller and or newer. So an organization that starts off sort of the sort of stereotypical idea, right? Of a person or two or three people together, maybe in their place where they live or in their garage or something, in their dorm room, starting a business. Awesome. I've done that, right? That's the awesome part. The challenge is as when we're really new and or small. So maybe we've been in business for 20 years, but we have 3 people that work there. So we're small, but we're not new, or we could be new and not be small. But the idea for smaller and newer organizations is if you don't bring on the most qualified, meaning experienced, right, knowledgeable, and has practical application information person to be in HR, then you get a question. This is why I've had the question, and I don't even know how many times it's been asked of me. Especially when I used to do seminar programs for the general public, and it would, the seminar program would be something like, new to HR, and it would be basically geared toward people who are brand new to the field, and often it would be someone from a smaller organization or a newer organization who had no HR experience. Maybe they were doing something totally unrelated. They could have been doing admin work or something else, and someone said to them, "Hey, we need somebody to do HR. You can do it." Or maybe they volunteered, but in any event, they don't have any background in the field, and now they're all of a sudden told do HR, which in a way, of course, we know as HR heroes, that's like telling somebody, do physics, do surgery. Okay, can we, you and I, can any of us, probably with enough time and resources, learn something to some level of competence? Of course. I think if I really, really, really had the time and the resources and sought out the best knowledgeable people in the world, that I could probably learn a sufficient amount of being a professional motorcycle rider. Now, I've been on a motorcycle, I'm thinking, actually one time in my entire life, and it was for like 60 seconds. So I right now have no experience. Now, if someone said to me, do motorcycle riding, then I think if I went out and had just a huge amount of time and a lot of resources, again, to hire the best people who knew, everything about that field to teach me and work with me, and potentially I could get to some level of competence in terms of being a motorcycle rider. I don't necessarily think that I'm going to do that overnight. And so what I was saying is that I would meet people either out and about, but often, especially at these seminar programs I would do that were to the public, just open to anybody who signed up for them. And they were geared toward people who really didn't have an HR background. And for some reason, usually because it was a new organization and or a small organization, they were just sort of told, now you're going to do HR. And they didn't even really know what it was. And so they'll ask me the question, how much law do I really need to know to succeed in the HR field? Now, for those of us who are in HR and love it, which is, of course, I'm sure, I wanted to say all of us, but there are no absolutes. There may be someone who listens and is part of our community for our HR Heroes Hangout, and maybe isn't even an HR fan. Maybe they just do it because they're not really into they don't really support HR, but maybe they just can't stop themselves from being part of the HR Heroes Hangout. So I don't want to make a sort of a unilateral absolute declaration. But in general, we know when we're dealing with HR, the question, how much law do I really need to know to succeed in the HR field, is a challenge, but it's a bit of a worry. It's somewhat analogous to someone saying to me, how much medicine do I really need to know to succeed in the medical field? I would be concerned if someone asked that question. Now, some people will say, well, HR is not law. HR is a different field. It's called human resources, human resource management, human resource development. Okay. Human resources. Again, I personally find to be one of the most fascinating professional fields that exist, because it is an intersection of an organizational business philosophy and applied practice. In other words, I have some sort of organization. We have to do stuff. Maybe it's a government agency, maybe it's for-profit, maybe it's nonprofit, maybe it's private sector, maybe it's public sector. It's irrelevant. But I have an organization. We have something we have to get done, right? And we've had these sort of massively fascinating changes in our global technology and economy that have sort of thrust new requirements and expectations. So several hundred years ago, human resources wasn't really anything that people worried about. If you had more of an agrarian, a farming society, you had human resources, meaning you had to have some analysis of getting stuff done. How many heads of cattle do I need? How many acres do I need to seed? When is the season for me to harvest my crops? I mean, you had to make decisions, the same exact decisions. You have people and resources and you have goals, the same thing. But you didn't have the standardization that you have now, and that's been within about the last 100 years. When those of us who love business and you sort of know what's happened in this really rapid idea that we're going to quantify everything. The idea of the Industrial Revolution as applied to manufacturing, moving even toward the idea, not just from the assembly line, but moving towards sort of a just-in-time fulfillment process, right? So we're not even holding any surplus or any products that we haven't sold. There's so much rapid change, and it's gone hand in hand, of course, with societal and political and really technological change. Because now we have so much open information, right? I can, and we have so much access to different products and services. I mean, I can compete with products and services on the other side of the planet. I can ship things, even tangible things, even perishables. The logistics of transportation alone have transformed our markets, and by doing so, when one business person somewhere in the world figured out, look, I can study this, I can apply a formula to it, I can maybe standardize it, and look at how much more efficient I am, look at how much more I could produce, and look at the advantage it's given me. Then other people, of course, read about it and want to do it too. And now, of course, we're rushing head on into this amazing field of the technology in robotics, being able to take over more than just sort of what we think of at this point in terms of sort of automated work that's repetitive, but being able to do a lot more in terms of non-repetitive work. So what I'm arguing is simply this. HR obviously has been around since the dawn of organizations and humans, because we always had to get stuff done. Even when we were hunter-gatherers, or living on the plains, we still had to get stuff done. We just had a more informal way of doing it. And we had more freedom in how to craft our time, because we weren't under a certain timed work day. We didn't have a certain amount of expectation from our investors. We didn't have a certain amount of pressure for data and transparency. It wasn't that standardized. Society was different. So when people ask about how much law they really need to know to succeed in HR, what I'm arguing is that human resources is law. At this point, It's about human resources is getting stuff done, right? We talk about that all the time. That's why we love them and they're HR heroes. It's that department you go to. Hey, we need to exactly with the word human in there, right? So I'm getting stuff done, that human part. So I'm hiring humans, I'm retaining humans, I'm making sure my humans are engaged and they feel that they're communicated well and that they're content. I want to make sure my humans are able to perform their work at the highest quality level. I want to make sure that, so that's what I need, right? So there's laws everywhere about all of that stuff. How do I hire? Where are there rules about hiring? How do I pay people? Is there a certain amount of money I have to pay them? Are there any requirements on who I can hire? Can I hire a 3-year-old child to work here in my full-time business? Are there any rules about people, the humans I'm hiring, where they were born? And where they may have filled out some sort of governmental paperwork and gone through some process to have different legal status depending on different parts of the planet. Right? So I was born in Germany. So if I'm, but I'm not a German citizen, right? And so I'm a U.S. citizen. So if I jump up and I move to Paraguay, I go to Paraguay tomorrow. What are the rules? Can someone hire me full time to work with the organization? So it's humans. I need to hire humans. I need to keep humans. Sometimes, very sadly, sometimes, actually, it's not sad. And if you've been part of our other programs, it is not sad when a human is not in the right organization at the right time for them, and people need to part ways. It's not sad at all. Just like if a relationship breaks up, not one hopefully where there are young children or other extenuating circumstances, but let's say somebody got together, they were maybe dating, thought they were going to like each other, but then they realized we're not the right people, and then they broke up. It's not a bad thing, it's a good thing, because otherwise we would have had this horrible, sad ongoing relationship that wasn't working. Same thing at work. So the HR is in charge of the humans, but the humans, because of all of the things I was talking about, industrialization, technology, globalization, transparency, and competitive pressure because we've had these, and they've been a roller coaster. So right? We've had these incredible highs, right, in terms of our global markets, in terms of global wealth, and then we've had these incredible lows. And everything moves really quickly, right? Part of it's because the information moves so quickly, and products that move so quickly. We have such an amazing amount of transportation, and imagine what it'll be like, in 2 or 3 decades from now. I just hope to live as long as I possibly can, because I'm fascinated by all the exciting things that happen, and I want to see what the future holds. So as much as I can. So all that's to say, humans are going to require knowledge of the rules of hiring, of keeping, of retaining, of engaging. How can you treat your humans when they work at your organization? Can you harass them? Can you physically beat them up? Can you put them in places where you lock them in their workplace and they have no fire exit and no way to extinguish a fire? I ask these questions not to be funny. Obviously, if you are not new to our HR field or have studied it, no. We've had these cases in the United States. We've had these cases in Asia. We've had these cases all over the world where people actually do and have done. And I'm not talking about a long, long, long time ago. I'm talking about in the last recent history, where people thought, oh, okay, well, this is cheaper and better. I don't want people going out, on break too much, so I'll just lock them in my workplace. And unfortunately, something, happened, a fire broke out, and no one can get out. And then they die because they can't get out because somebody locked them in there. So there are rules about this. And many of the rules, which are laws, were enacted in response to this. So may I legally hire a 3-year-old child to work full-time in my organization? In most parts of the world, the answer is absolutely not. The law says you can't do it. Now, in some parts of the world, the law says you cannot hire a 3-year-old child to work at your organization as an employee or staff member. But the culture is such that people don't enforce the law, so you're going to see young children working. You usually don't see 3-year-olds, just because that age is a very difficult age to get focused and attention. But it's not a joke. I mean, this is a real challenge. And I'm not talking about historically and something we studied in the past. I'm talking about today, right now. I don't care if you're listening to the show, whatever year it is, I guarantee you it's still happening. Because we have the whole area of what we talk about in so many other programs, ethics, which I teach, right? Ethics. What should I do? What's the right thing to do? The law tells you what you have to do, but the law only tells you what you have to do if you care, and most people only care because of enforcement. Human resources about getting humans, hiring humans, retaining humans, engaging humans, evaluating humans, paying humans. It's all about law because there are rules for all of this. And my argument, of course, in this narrative is that the rules are usually in reaction to, they're usually reactive, not proactive, unfortunately. But they're reactive. Oh, goodness. In the United States, oh, we had child labor. We had a lot of challenges. There were societal issues and consequences. So there was a law, a federal law enacted that said we're not supposed to do this anymore. I'm not supposed to be having, 7-year-olds work at my garment factory. What law is that? Fair Labor Standards Act, 1938. That's exactly what it is. You need to know this. When you look at the question, how much law do I need to know to succeed? Depends on, of course, how you define success. Now, there are people who know nothing about their job at all, no matter whether it's HR or, biology or janitorial services. It doesn't matter what it is. There are people who are able to sort of get away with knowing almost nothing or sometimes absolutely nothing and just sort of get into the right place, the right time. Maybe they have nepotism or some other advantage they're using, and they can get through to getting a job or maintaining some sort of job or even sometimes having a high profile job and not know anything. But that's the rare person. They're relying on all these other networks, right? I'm related to someone, or I have a personal relationship with someone, or whatever. Everybody else who's not in that world of leveraging relationships to get what you want, people who are trying to actually, hey, I studied mathematics, I want to go get a job about mathematics. I studied accounting, I want to get a job about accounting. I studied cosmetology, and I have a cosmetology license, I want to go work in a cosmetology salon. I mean, everybody else who is out there on their skills, then yes, if you want to succeed, you have to know things. We did a program a while ago, right? Is it what you know or who you know? I argue it's what you know. Again, this is a very certain specific perspective in a globalized world where it's a talent race. There's a whole international fear, right, of international brain drain, where nations are worried and societies are worried. We don't want our people that have the most knowledge to leave. We want them to stay here because this is if we really are truly in a knowledge economy and knowledge age. As I mentioned earlier, right, we have increased robotics moving into so many different fields that traditionally we thought humans would do, but now robots can do them. The technologies, it looks to me, from what I've been reading, that we're finalizing toward self-driving autonomous automobiles and all of the amazing other types of changes that are going to transform. I can't even name how many different professions and jobs, right? Just like in the past, it was transformed when humans weren't needed on an assembly line because they put robots in. So it's happening at an amazing speed, and it's awesome and exciting and all this kind of good stuff. But the situation is that the human resource professional is still dealing with all of this. And everything to do with the humans, there's some law somewhere. The law is, again, often reactive based on something that happened that wasn't great. When I said you need to know why things happen, it's because of this. When someone says to me, how much law do I really need to know to succeed in HR? Sometimes what they're asking me is a question from the perspective of they know too much. Sometimes people start saying, look, I love law. I study it all the time. I love reading updates. I love hearing about what new case rulings have come down. I know so much law. I worry I know too much law for my human resource field. My argument is that's not something you need to be worried about. Now, of course, you need to have balance so that you're not reading your HR law and your employment law all day and all night, and you can't sleep and spend time on your fitness and your friends and things of this and family. But you can't be in a situation as long as your time is balanced and healthy where you know too much about your field of expertise. I must mention this. Human resources, as I said earlier, when the organization is small and or new, and somebody doesn't have a field or background or education or anything in HR and is sort of like, hey, you can do HR. And often that's because HR is sort of viewed by some people who just haven't been privy to really thinking about this and understanding the scope of what HR is. They'll think, oh, it's administrative and it's after the fact. So someone will think, hey, look, I have a business. My business is janitorial services. I go out and I clean hotels and sometimes hotels, or I clean office buildings and I clean people's apartments and houses. And this is what I do. We clean stuff. And people will think, well, my business is cleaning stuff. So as long as I'm getting out there and selling people to, to buy my service. As long as people are buying my cleaning service, and then of course I need to pay for the materials, and I need to make sure I have humans to go out and do the cleaning, because right now we don't have robots that can go do all of the cleaning. But in all fairness and honesty, the robots are increasing. I know I personally have made posts on the blog on CourtneyAnderson.com about my robot sweep and vacuum robot. And I had the robot mop machine too, but I'm going to replace it. After many wonderful years, it died. My point is simply this: people think the HR part, the human part, is ancillary to whatever their business is. That, of course, is not logical, because even if the technology progresses to a point where we have very few humans that we need, you're still going to need humans. Here's the thing: the end user is the human. The robot is not going to be buying stuff, at least I believe in the way we see it, the robot would have to really have, artificial intelligence at a certain level to be able themselves to be a consumer. That certainly may happen, but I don't necessarily see that in the immediate future. What we're building these businesses and organizations for is an end human user. So if I'm a nonprofit and I'm a dance company, right? So it's about dance, modern dance. And we're a nonprofit, but we're all about dance, and we're just focused on in the arts and putting on dance. Who's the consumer? Who's the end user? It's a human. We're putting on the dance for humans. We're not putting on the dance and doing our nonprofit activity for some other non-human entity. Robots aren't going to be buying tickets to sit and watch us dance, as I said, as we understand things to be right now. As the current markets and all of the focus is that the end purchaser, the end user, the end customer, the end client at a government agency, who are we doing this for? If let's say we work somewhere and we're dealing with, transportation. Who's the end user? The human. So human resources, remember, is not just focused on the external, on the internal, hiring, firing, retention of their own internal employees, vendors, and staff. They have to understand the big picture of why are we here? What's the organization here for? They're here to serve some human. The challenges are a couple. One, in most organizations, like I said, there's this it's odd when you think about it, because the business exists about humans. So if you think your janitorial business is about janitorial services, it isn't. It's about humans. What it's really about is getting somebody somewhere to think that they need you. They don't need you, but they want you to come clean their area, and that they'll pay your rates. And like I said, even though parts of it are automated, most even janitorial services don't require people to get on their hands and knees, and hand scrub a floor, because they have vacuum cleaners and many other technology that you can use that will help pick up dirty lint and things, and then the human will use the technology just like they do in any other field, right? So the humans are not ancillary to the business. The humans are the business, because your humans are your customer, your client, or your community, because there's the end user no matter what your organization is. And the other part is you need some kind of human somewhere inside your organization, because someone has to be able to figure out, how do we either monetize this, go get a client or a customer. If we're a nonprofit, we need to get donors or benefactors, or we need to do fundraise. We need money to be able to sustain whatever it is that, our facilities or our resources. So this is all about humans, and the human resources it wouldn't be logical that it's ancillary. It's of course integral to the whole thing. But the people who, like I said, haven't really seen it the way we see it, aren't focused on that. They're focused on a little slice and thinking, I need to, go get new customers. I need to bring in more revenue. And they're right. That's part of it. But the big picture is, why are you bringing in revenue at all? What's the point of the whole thing? Human resources sees all of that. They have to. And that's why it's such, and when I say glamorous and exciting at the beginning of the show, and I tell you that I mean that authentically, it really is, because it's the intersection of all of this. There's an internal focus human resource professional needs to have, which is your own policy, procedure, how you do it at your place. And most of that, they're going to be big guidelines, usually by some sort of government or other entity, that'll tell you what you have to do. But but inside that, you do whatever you want to. So maybe there's rules that tell you can't hire minor children, and they'll give you a certain age and tell you what age you can't hire. You have to abide by that, but within that rule, it's up to you to decide how you're going to define the jobs, hiring the people for quality, because you're defining the entity at all. Of course, here I'm talking something that is non-governmental. But at the government, it's the same thing. Humans are doing the same thing. They're just doing it at a larger level. The government is deciding, what's the purpose of this agency? Why do we have it? What is it doing? What are the humans they're supposed to be doing? So it's the same process. It's just that the government agency, government entities are the ones that design it, and then in the private sector, the individuals in the private sector design it. But it's the same thing. It's being designed. None of this is ordained. It's all stuff that humans make up. So your HR professional must know law because you have to understand the big picture. If you're going to talk about anything in human resources, you need to understand why you're doing it. I mentioned in the show notes, you can't simply tell people as a human resource professional, you need to fill out this form. If you don't understand why they are filling out the form. Now, many of you were thinking, well, obviously, who would tell someone to fill out the form if they didn't know what the form was, why we use the form, the purpose of the form, whatever. I mention this because it happens, and I've witnessed this multiple times. The person is in an HR job position, but they don't know anything about human resources. They don't know about the law. They don't know about the policies and procedures of the organization. They're not really thinking about the human end user. They are just in a little teeny narrow version of the world being told, tell people to fill out this form. And they do that. They tell the people to fill the form out. Now, why the people fill the form out? They don't know. The purpose of the form? Not sure. And this is where the whole thing, when we have a situation where human resources is not exceptional. Now, as we've shared, the majority of the time, of course, human resources is exceptional because only the most skilled, the most passionate, the most dedicated would dedicate themselves to being a human resources professional. But there are the rare occasion, we could all open up our media anywhere you are in the world and read some bad outcome in a business and tie it back to human resources. Because you're not going to get something that's reported in the media or in the courts. The business failed, people were abused or harassed at a business, a product went out from the business that wasn't safe, and people died and or were injured by using the unsafe product, and then the business, knew about it. I mean, these things don't happen without human resources at some level not being exceptional and or not being allowed to exert their authority. So if you have if you have a phenomenal human resources leadership of the department, but they're not given any authority and the human resources are ignored, and they're saying we can't do this, it's illegal, it's unethical, here's why, and they're ignored, then they weren't able to perform their duties, and that's again a failure of the whole system. Human resources is about the humans. Every single organization has an end user as a human. The law is the entire framework for the external rules that human resource professionals have to use. So you have to know it. It's, again, these analogies may or may not be helpful. I don't know. It depends on your background, but it's like this. I've mentioned in other programs here and there that I'm not particularly athletic. Doesn't mean that I don't enjoy being physical. I love my exercise. I enjoy dancing, swimming, one of my favorite things to do. But I'm not athletically talented. I'm not fast. I'm not coordinated. I know this because when I was younger, I was on several different activities as a young person, just in, school. They had different physical education programs and classes where we do different exercise and athlete activities, and I was never talented or skilled or competent, but I enjoyed it. I do it with great gusto and enthusiasm. I'm just not coordinated or anything where I have any athletic potential talent. If I was told that I needed to go and play cricket, and in full disclosure, I've never played cricket. Okay, so this is a good example. So if I was told, somebody said to me, "Hey, you need to go play cricket," and I said, "Hey, I don't even know how to play it or what the rules are or anything." That's actually true. When I was working in Australia, I was trying to listen and understand a little bit. People were trying to explain to me, and I'm open to learn. I just don't know. If I went out and someone put me on a cricket field, and I don't even know if this is the right term, and said, or pitch, I've already embarrassed myself. But here's the point. If somebody said, "Hey, we need somebody to stand here, and you're going to just stand in this place and do this one thing," right? If I didn't understand the rules of the game, I could stand in that one place and do that one thing, hoping it was the right thing, but I don't understand why I'm doing it or what the bigger picture is, so it's a disaster. I'm not succeeding because I don't even understand what's going on. I'm just standing in one place doing one thing because you told me to. I don't even know if you're telling me the truth. Better analogy, real life. Again, I have great enthusiasm and gusto, don't have really athletic talent that I've ever discovered at this point. That's fine. I enjoy my, fitness and having fun and being physical. I just don't, harbor any dream of being an athlete in a professional way or even a competitive way. I just do it for fun. So here's the thing. A few years ago, I was doing a big conference, and there was a day in between the events where the executives of the organization were going to go out and go golfing, go play some golf round. I don't know if it was a round or some rounds. I'm not, see already. Long story short, I wanted to make sure I was there with the executives because, of course, those were the people who hired me and who it was imperative that I felt that I spent time with and understood better their organizational needs, things of that nature. So I said, well, of course, I'll be delighted, something along the lines. I'm going golfing. Now, I had never in my life even set foot on a golf course. It just wasn't anything I'd ever done. I don't know the rules today for golf. I didn't know them then. And because I don't know the rules, I just was sort of following along with everybody else was doing, right? I didn't even understand what, I can't remember. Okay, so you get a bag of sort of, I had played putt-putt before, which is not at all the same, but there's sort of a bag and you get your sticks that you're going to use to hit the ball and try to hit it to the hole. I didn't even understand that I did see that the sticks the clubs have different numbers on them or different markings, and they also have different sizes. Some of them are narrow, like little wedges. Some of them are sort of bulbous. But I don't know what I'm using them for. I don't know what we're doing. I didn't understand anything, and because of that, and I explained obviously before I showed up, like, hey, don't put me anywhere with people who are serious or anything like that, because I honestly have never done this, and I just want to socialize and learn more about the business, and I'm open to learn, but I don't know anything. So I made tons of errors, and people were very kind because it was very relaxed, but explained, and they chuckled, and but for them to stand there and tell me pick up this club and do this, I didn't understand the rules though. I don't understand the big picture. I don't understand the game. I don't understand what we're doing next. I don't understand why we just did that. I don't understand why I'm supposed to stand here. I don't understand it because I don't know what's happening. That's what happens when you don't learn the system and you just think you're going to show up and tell somebody do this one thing or fill this one form out. You have to understand the law because the law is a system. You're not going to know every single word of every single law. Lawyers don't know that. Judges don't know that. All you learn in law school, which is in the United States, law school is it's a professional doctorate. So everyone's required before they enter law school to finish a 4-year undergraduate degree, and then law school is at least another 3 years. So it's 7 years of college just to earn a law degree. In law school, they're teaching you the framework, the big picture. You have to understand all the things I was saying in the show in the first part where I'm sort of talking about, the change, and I'm talking about technology, I'm talking about the Industrial Revolution, I'm talking about, you're not supposed to use little kids, but you used to. And then I mentioned, okay, part of this ties into industrialization, right? And transparency, media coverage, and public pressure to, in the United States, I'm speaking specifically, sort of stop, or well, you haven't stopped it, but to cut down on child use. Child labor. And so I said, and because of that, the federal government is the entity that makes the law for the whole jurisdiction, right, within their federal area. And I said in 1938, enacted the Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA. You should know this law. I said that. Why did I say that? Because you need to know the framework. Now, did I sit here and say you need to go memorize every single word and punctuation in FLSA? No. But you need to know what it is in big picture. What's the purpose of it? And you understand the framework of it. So what does it do? No use of child labor, equal pay for equal work, actually, which is a part people don't really think about a lot. It says overtime pay, and it sets up this whole system of categorizing work. Some work is going to be exempt from the rules in FLSA, so you don't pay overtime, so that no matter how many hours they work, they get the same pay. And then the other group is not exempt. So the law applies to them, and it's going to have all these rules about at how much it sets. FLSA set the minimum wage, right? Set a minimum wage for the whole country, and then within this, it tried to define, and you can imagine how difficult this is, which is why this is a fascinating law. But it tried to define, okay, well, who will be subject to this, right? He'll be subject to the rules about minimum wage. He'll be subject to the rules about if you're going to do a minimum wage and you're going to say that it's over a certain amount of hours, people have to be paid overtime. And if you read the history and the politics of this, you'll see people were very passionately protesting and expressing themselves politically. You had a lot of union representation and dialogue, and people were saying, like, this didn't happen just magically. Again, these things are often reactive. So you need to understand big picture what FLSA does. Now, again, I'm not saying you have to memorize the whole thing or sit here and worry about, a certain sentence on a certain page. What you're doing, though, is understanding the big picture framework. When you understand the big picture framework, then you can put details in the right place. I don't need to be a genius and know everything about golf, but if I'm going to seriously start to play and add that to part of my social, and or business activity, I need to learn the big picture of the game and the big picture rules. Now, then later, if I want to add details about what type of specialized club, what type of specialized foot attire or whatever, I can add that. But I need to understand big picture. What are we doing? You must understand the big picture in HR. The thing I get really excited and fired up about is this. In so many instances in real life, human resources is the only full-time, on-the-ground expert that anybody has to turn to. Many managers and supervisors, and of course I don't think this is how it should be, but it's just the reality of it. Many managers and supervisors know their little sliver of the area. So if it's a janitorial business, then the manager or supervisor knows janitorial services. They know the sort of the best way to get something cleaned of a certain size or a certain type of quality. They understand the expectations of how quickly someone should be able to get a work done, and they really know that bit of janitorial. But they don't know anything usually about any of the rest of it. They don't know anything about the rules about hiring people, the rules about engaging people, the rules about paying people, the rules. They don't know any of it. Now, I would argue, and what I do, of course, obviously, as a professor, when I teach in university programs, I'm teaching in business schools. Of course, I'm teaching them and I'm explaining to them why you need to know this as a future manager, as a current manager, as an executive, whatever. But that's a small sliver of people. I mean, a very small percentage of people are in universities at all, right? So the majority of people are out there every day doing their best, but they don't know all of this. And it's not their fault. They just don't know it. Now, in other programs, I argue that the organization should take more of a proactive stance in teaching this to them. Because if you don't teach somebody, then there's no way they're going to know it, because they're busy trying to take care of all their work already, and they have their regular life with their family and friends and doing the things that bring them other, joy and interest. So they're not going to be able usually to fit in with a full-time professional job to go. They don't even know what they don't know. Human resources is usually the only entity that people can turn to and say, what do we do? If human resources doesn't know because all they know is a little teeny piece because someone said to them, tell them to fill the form out, but you don't even know why you're filling the form out. You're not really sure where the form goes. You don't even understand what FMLA stands for. You're not sure what FLSA stands for. You don't know it. Then everybody's in deep trouble because you were the expert. The positive side of what we referred to earlier, that I was talking about, the negative part where people think, oh, my business is janitorial services. My business is, selling cars. My business is building houses or whatever it is. And I argue, no, your business is humans, because humans are your end user. You need to understand it, the system bigger. But because that's how a lot of people look at things, they just, because this is a massive amount of information. The most dedicated HR hero is not going to know everything. The most dedicated lawyer doesn't know everything. Lawyers aren't trying to memorize everything. All they're doing is learning systems. You're trying to learn the big picture. And when you know the big picture and you understand how the rules are and where the framework is, and you can plug stuff in details, and you can look up what happened recently with a new case, and you understand exactly what it means and where to put it within the framework of the big picture. But you have to know the big picture. And if you're in HR, you have to know the big picture. You don't have to know all of the big picture that a lawyer knows, because a lawyer isn't just studying HR law. They're studying all this other stuff, criminal law and civil procedure and, wills and estates. They're in oil and gas, in the schools I went to in jurisdiction I'm licensed in. I was tested on that in my bar exam. So they're learning a lot other areas way beyond just the little area that the human resource professional is working on. But the human resource professional in this little area of employment law and or labor law, yeah, you need to know big picture. Big picture means, what does it mean? Why does this law exist? What's the big picture goal of it? What's the main thing it does? Oh, it sets minimum wage. Oh, it says that I can't refuse to hire people based on their religion. Oh, it says that I'm not allowed to ask people if they're disabled. Like, that's what I mean, big picture. You need to know it really well because, again, often, and I'm so excited about this, the only people that are there to help on a day-to-day basis are usually HR. Many organizations don't have in-house lawyers at all. Some may have maybe someone that's outside counsel that they'll go to if they think there's a problem. But here's the deal. By the time somebody thinks that something's bad enough to go to an outside lawyer, it is much worse than it would have been if it had been caught earlier. In other words, it's really severe because no one wants to pay those extra costs and have the extra time. But I'm saying, that's a decision. And some instances it can work well. I mean, it's up to the organization. Many organizations that are really small have no lawyer at all anywhere. And that's okay. And I'm saying this from a U.S. perspective, which is in many ways people can, I think, justifiably argue is an assertively open legal system where people say and feel like, oh, I'll take you to court, and they mean it, right? In the U.S., people say that because we have a lot of lawyers. I really encourage you. There's so much to this program that is that we have other programs on about talking through FMLA or FLSA. These are U.S.-based federal laws, talking through specifically how do you engage employees. That's an international HR question, and how do HR interface with and empower managers and supervisors to get more of the information that they need desperately to do their jobs accurately that they lack because they didn't have any training or education in these areas. But at bare minimum, I'm begging this. The question, how much law do I really need to know to succeed in the HR field? The answer is as much as possible. As much as possible. And I've tried to make my argument why. Now, it's not going to be analogous to what a lawyer knows or a judge knows because they're looking at the whole totality in many instances of the legal system. Some of these different systems you're not looking at. You're not looking at criminal law. You're not looking at administrative law. You're looking at one little area, employment law and or labor law. But it's still a huge area. And I don't care what country you're in or what part of the world you're in, your system has, and not just on paper, but how does it function in real life, which is a whole other thing, right? What do you do with the forms you fill out? How long does it take? What does it mean in terms of your hiring timeline? All these things. I mean, there's a lot in this area that, yes, you're an HR professional. This is your area. You need to be an expertise as much as possible. Again, you don't want to go out on that sporting field and not even know the rules of the game. I gave you all these really poor analogies because I don't even know the right terms. But imagine me standing out there, right, on the golf course, and I don't even know what stick to use, club or whatever. And I didn't. And it's not funny. I mean, it was not because it was a social event. But that's what happens when you're in your job in HR and you really don't understand what's going on. So this begs all of the question, what do you do then if you are new to HR, aspiring to be HR professional, you want to be HR hero, and you're thinking, I'm overwhelmed. I really don't know all this stuff. I've heard of some of it, or I've seen the letters, but I'm not exactly sure how it all fits together. I'm not really sure what these things mean. You must. If this is what you want, assuming of course it is, that you want to be an HR hero, you must educate yourself. And you must do everything in your power to prioritize knowledge. And you need great resources. As we're closing, I want to point out our show sponsor today. This is HR Direct. HR Direct is a company that provides a variety of different employment law, workplace solutions, everything from the required postings. Literally in the United States, there are rules about posting certain rights, which makes sense. I mean, you want people to know, here are your rights. How are they going to know if nobody tells them? So there's rules that you must post these certain amounts of postings in certain prominent areas so people know what their legal rights are. HR Direct provides those types of things. They also help you with solutions with time keeping and training materials for all different types of issues for managers. A lot of things I was just talking about in the program, right? So that's our show sponsor. You'll see the link on the show page. Again, this was show episode 158. Please come to CourtneyAnderson.com and access the expanded notes. I'm going to include a link to a fantastic chart Okay, it's a chart, and it's from the United States state of Texas, and it's a chart that'll show you, I think, really well, depending on the size of your organization, what laws apply to you. Now, this is based on Texas. Remember, they're federal laws and state laws, and in some instances, city and or county laws. So it's not going to be something that this is the chart for everyone, but this is going to give you an idea that the size of the organization means different laws are going to start to kick in. If you have one employee, you're totally different from if you have 15 or more employees. Got other laws kick in when you get to 15. If you have 4 employees, different laws are going to kick in than when you get to 20 employees or 50 or more employees, right? With our FMLA and a certain mile radius, right? So the point is, please ask questions. I mentioned at the beginning when I would go to do the public seminars, you need to read everything you can get your hands on. You need to attend continuing education. You need to join, if you haven't already joined, you need to be active in as much as you can, some sort of professional organization. Whether it's Society for Human Resource Management or another group, you need to be active because this is a profession. And it is a profession that is a relatively new profession, and it is a profession that is a challenging profession because you have a ton of information that is constantly changing. Because there's new court interpretations, there's new technology, there are new industries that are coming along, and you have to be in this in a narrow area. You're not learning all law, but in this narrow area of employment and labor law, you need to be an expert. And most people who are in the HR field love it because it is really interesting. It's never boring. And our HR heroes, of course, it's sublime for them. I mean, this is absolutely the right place. But it's not debatable. If you don't know the law and you have not a clue what you're doing and you're just sort of standing there, in my sporting analogy, just sort of standing around waiting, you don't know what's going to happen, you have no clue what you're doing, you're setting yourself up for really bad outcomes professionally. And the thing is, because you don't know what's happening, you can't give anybody else any good information. You can't give a manager or a supervisor good information, or a business owner, especially for small companies. You don't know. You have no idea. All you learned is one thing: fill out the form, or don't fill out the form, or post this thing on the wall. Why? You don't know. That's the challenge. Again, you're not going and reading these laws and memorizing them, anything silly like that. I don't do that. No one is doing that. What you're doing is you need to understand big picture. What are the big picture rules? What's the bottom line? And see how the laws in your area of employment law and labor law fit together. How workers' comp would interact if someone had a disability under the ADA. How that would interact potentially if they went on FMLA leave. You need to understand this. You won't understand any of it if you don't understand what the big picture is. One of those is an unpaid leave for very specific reasons for a certain amount of time. Unpaid. Another thing is a paid benefit, basically like an insurance, based on a certain injury, illness, or death. That's workers' comp. The other one I was referring to is FMLA. ADA is something totally different. It's a lot about disabilities, people with certain qualifying conditions, or who are perceived to have certain qualifying conditions, and about whether or not you can, in the hiring process, retention process, or even termination process, what you can do in terms of asking if somebody needs an accommodation to be able to perform their tasks. What are the rules? You have to understand the big picture rules. So I do strongly encourage you to come to our show page. I really encourage you to look at this chart that I've linked to there. It's just one example, but I think it'll start to show you that it's not enough to sort of, I think I kind of maybe understand a little bit about what Title VII is, and I've heard of FMLA. That's not enough. You need to see and get a better understanding, big picture, and also what laws apply where you work. Because depending on the size, what I talked about earlier, small and or new, you'd be surprised. A lot of the laws people think they're worried about don't even apply to them because they're too tiny. So why on earth are you worried about it? You don't have enough employees to even, you haven't triggered the large enough size to even be concerned about that. But you don't even know that because you haven't bothered to look and sort of see the bare basic outlines of the framework. And these are the things that I'm begging you to do, because especially if you're small and or new, and if you're the only or full-time or partially full-time person that anybody can ask, if you don't have good information, then nobody has it, and the whole organization suffers. All the humans suffer. Your internal humans and team members, and your external end user clients and customers. So I'm not trying to put a sort of a heavy responsibility on you, but when I said earlier at the beginning how awesome HR is, I mean it. It really is awesome. That's why I get so fired up and excited about it. But it's a profession with an entire body of knowledge. The law is just part of it. Now, once you've mastered sort of your framework and your law, then we have this other applied part of it. How do you get people to do things? And a lot of that's going to be industrial organizational psychology. Getting the human and dealing with the human's motives and behavior. There's the ethics section of this. I mean, there's other parts. Once you build the foundation, understanding the law, because that's what you have to do. It's a must do. And then on top of that, you're going to add the nuances of how to apply that to get somebody to do something effectively. What's the best return on investment for your training? What's going to make you the leading organization in your sector in terms of your processes and your policies? So there's a lot, right? Continuous improvement means continuous, but it also means improvement. So I hope I've answered the question to the best of the show's ability. How much law do I really need to know to succeed in the HR field? As much as possible. Come to the show page at CourtneyAnderson.com. This is episode 158. Please access the chart that I'm referring to give you an example of, so you'll start to, I think it helps to just see it really clearly. Oh, a lot of these laws don't even apply to small organizations. Yeah, exactly. And also support our show sponsor, which was HR Direct. We've got some links there in our show sponsor showcase on the show page. They've got great materials, and if you have any questions, please send me a note. Let me know your feedback, your issues, and how I may be of service to continue with helping you to surpass your goals as an HR hero. Thank you.